Hello viewers, you are welcome to Child and Society, the program that is for you, talks about yourselves, your children, your community, your society, that discusses real issues. It's a program that talks about everything that goes on, both the policies that they affect you, and also that showcases good role models within the society. Today we are going to be talking about yet another issue that concerns us. Your regular presenter is Vera Colley and
Simisola Dabiri.
Thank you. Today we are going to be talking about showing you what we mean by parental responsibility that has gone wrong. Every adult has got a responsibility. When you're a parent, you have responsibility for your children. But today we're going to be using scenario to depict what happens when parents neglect or disregard their parental responsibility and therefore neglect the needs of their children. I'm going to be asking Simi to give us a scenario that concerns some families whereby two adults left children on their own without due responsibility being put in place.
I think it's more disregard to anything else. But picture this, a scenario. You have three adults who between them have 5 children. These adults, the children range between the ages of 11 and 2. So you have an older child who's a female who is 11, and then you have 3 other children who range between 2 and 3 years of age. The 3 adults leave these 5 children at home on their own one evening and go off to night vigil. Whilst they're out at night vigil, the oldest child finds it very difficult to calm one of the younger children down. She becomes so frustrated that she pushes the child down and says, "Go to sleep." Unbeknown to this poor 11-year-old, she didn't realise that the child had hit her head when she laid down. The 11-year-old noticed that the baby had continued to cry, but not as much as before. The 11-year-old noticed that the baby had stopped crying and felt that the baby had gone to sleep. The 3 adults returned home at about 2:30 in the morning from night vigil to find all the children asleep, including this baby who was presumed to be asleep. But the baby had died. Basically, the baby had hit her head on the wall whilst she was being pushed down by the older child and had sustained bleed in the brain and died as a result of that in her sleep.
Okay, viewers, we have heard the scenario just now. So just be imagining the scenario. Adults have left children at home, assuming that the children have got mens rea, have got understanding. Even though there was one child who is 11, the adults assume that that child will be able to care for the rest of the children. That's what we are looking at. Do we really understand how children think? Do we understand the age of responsibility? Do we as parents understand our responsibilities towards our children? Here we've got 2 mothers leaving those children in the care of a little boy. The parents, yes, in one way they will say, yes, they've done the right thing, they've gone to worship God. But have they made appropriate plans before they went? We are going to be discussing it right now because we need to find out what are the responsibilities of parents. So, what are our responsibilities as adults towards children?
I think the main thing is not to be neglectful. And also, the leaving alone situation is a situation that parents do nearly every day without considering the understanding of the child that's being left to care for the younger children. NSPCC states the age of when a child can be left alone is the age of about 12. But they say 12 in relation to the child's understanding and what safety measures are put in place for that 12-year-old. They also don't talk about and don't acknowledge and don't accept that that 12-year-old should be left to be responsible for younger children. If you're going to leave a child at home and that child is 12, right, it should be that child and that child alone, not to care for children, especially not children under 5.
Okay. The scenario we talk about is a scenario that is a tragic one. It's led to tragedy, a child's death. Now, let's think again. Let's even assume that a child did not die. There are other things that could go wrong.
Definitely.
At home. There are issues of, for example, there could be fire. What is going to happen? There could be burglaries. What could happen?
Definitely.
There could be children wanting to cook for themselves. What will happen? There could be children, one of the children going to the bathroom and running the bath and thinking, I want to have my bath. What will happen? There was lack of supervision. That's what we're talking about. And sometimes these parents did not deliberate. They don't think they've made a deliberate omission. But obviously, they have neglected their responsibilities as parents. It's happening every day. In social services in England, we know that we take a lot of calls and we get involved with parents, cases concerning parents who have left their children home alone and gone to work. Some parents leave their children home alone and go to work without thinking of any of these things, without even planning adequately. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, you see, I think the problem with our community in this country is that we are very used to having the backup of families when we live back in Nigeria and back on the West African coastline. And we don't have that here. So there needs to be a radical rethink about, you want children because you're supposed to have children. You want to go to work, or you want to go to college, or you want to go to church because that's what, you would do.
Okay, so what we are saying, whether it's in Nigeria, whether it's in England, whether it's in America, a parent who has a child has got responsibility. The Children Act in the United Kingdom and Child's Rights in Nigeria places a duty upon the parent. Now let's talk about that duty, because I think everything stems from that duty, the understanding of that duty. Because if you don't understand that duty, then you will be relegating your responsibility to others. And during the time of relegating your responsibility to others, they may be likely that your children may even be abused. We know it's happening. Go on.
I actually think that, yes, a parent, every parent has a duty to their child, and every parent has a duty to ensure that their child's well-being, their education, their health, their safety, their personal welfare are actually protected and are actually number one. It has to be paramount. Cannot be anything else.
Yeah.
The adults' views around that has to be child focused. And as much as we have everything else going on in our lives, we have to make adequate supervision arrangements for our children. If we were going to go off to night vigil, for example, right, that family should have put in place someone to babysit, an adult that can take responsibility, an adult that can change a nappy, an adult that can make a bottle, an adult that can soothe a baby during the night. None of that happened in this scenario, and it is actually,
a crime.
It's a crime.
Yeah.
It's a total crime, and it's. Can you imagine how that 11-year-old felt knowing that
overwhelmed.
They had killed a baby? Can you imagine how the mother, then felt that she had left her child to be responsible for somebody else's child, and that child died in her home? That
scenario
for everybody. Yeah. That for everybody. That scenario, the police were involved, social service were involved, the children were removed, and there were court proceedings. I think that what happens, especially in this country, is that social service people view, especially our community, that social services just come in and take your children.
Okay, hold on.
No,
you've just talked about what will happen in England. What will happen in England if a child is found at home alone, let alone child found dead under the supervision of a child.
Yes.
In England, there's a procedure to follow involving the police,
yes,
social services,
yes,
proper investigation,
yeah,
assessments upon assessment,
and court procedures.
However, in Nigeria, we do not have systems in place that will deal with it. Perhaps we will have systems like police investigation, but there are no adequate systems for looking at the needs of the child. The child who is a victim is dead. The child who was left to supervise the other children is also a child in need.
Yes.
Take us through.
Yes. But I think, one of the things for me, unless it's radically changed, is that we do have other systems in place. Like we do, we still have the extended family system. We still have the grandmothers who come and stay. We still have, our extended family who are around us. We don't live in a nuclear situation. The problem with Nigerians in England is that they're not used to not being in a nuclear situation. And so therefore they continue to live as if to say they're in a compound kind of situation, and that's the difference.
Yeah, but even then, we know that in Nigeria, the people who have the idea of living in a compound situation leave their children at risk. When you are a parent and you're supposed to have the duty to be caring for your children, and you leave your children with your neighbors, you are not meeting the needs of your child. You are not meeting the needs of your child because you are leaving your child at risk. Because you cannot trust those people that you are leaving your child with. Like I was talking at the previous show, I was talking about children who were left with unknown tenants, who subsequently snatched the children and ran away and sold the children. It's our responsibility as adults, as mothers, as parents, to care, plan adequately for our children whenever we're not going to be around.
I think it's about a vetting procedure. We have to make sure that whoever we're leaving our children with, we are able to vet them. You know what I mean? And we have to make sure that whatever it is that we want to do with ourselves as adults don't actually impact on the welfare of the child. In this scenario, it did very much, to a very, very tragic experience of all concerned. The same thing does go for Nigeria, especially with the view of the fact that children are being bought and sold at the moment.
Yeah, so that is a good commodity.
Exactly, yes. Exactly. And so one needs to really consider that as well. But it's neglectful.
Neglectful.
At the end of the day, that scenario shows total disregard for the welfare of the child, and total disregard for what could happen, and it is a neglectful situation.
Yes, because the parent obviously has prioritized, both parents have prioritized their own needs and neglected their children's needs. That's what we are talking about. So when you as adults are planning for yourself, for your own enjoyment, we are not saying you shouldn't enjoy, we are not saying you shouldn't go out, but what we are saying is that if you are a parent, you should plan. If you are a single parent, plan adequately by getting someone who you can trust to be in the house to care for your children. If you are married, then your husband should be able to look after your children. Your husband should
talk about that.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about it in Nigerian context?
That's right. Your husband should be able to look after your child at home. If you're a husband, don't think that it's only your wife that has the responsibility of caring for your children, because the children belong to both you and your wife. So you must take turns in making sure that your children are safe at all times. That's what we are talking about.
I think, yes, the responsibility is both parents. It is definitely, it's supposed to be a shared experience.
Yeah.
I think in reality, it isn't. And even in this scenario, the father was not at home. Yeah. He wasn't a part of the family network. He did have contact with the children, but he didn't play a role, the kind of role he should.
Yeah, I mean, this exposes what goes on in our society, where, I don't know why, but in broken homes, where father is somewhere and mom is somewhere with their children, caring for the children. And, if you don't work as a team, then who suffers? The children suffer. So parents, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, whether you are cohabiting, whether you live with another woman and your wife lives alone, it's your responsibility. That's what we're saying. You cannot abdicate your responsibility towards your children. Otherwise, don't bring children to this world. It's your responsibility, and it's a crime if you neglect the needs of your children. The law will be after you. That's what we are talking. In the United Kingdom, yes, we will have you in. In Nigeria, we are trying to get there. The police will be after you soon. Go on.
I think the police part of it in Nigeria is another part entirely, because until we have kind of like a joint training experience between those in the welfare system and the police, so that they're on the same page and they respond the same way, we would still have those kind of situations in Nigeria where children are exposed to risks and danger. Yeah. So again, it goes back to regulation. I don't want the state to regulate every part of our lives. I don't want the state to become United Kingdom. You know what I mean? I feel Nigeria is a unique country in its own right, but we do need some regulations.
In one of our sessions last time, we talked about, should the state be having should the state intervene in family lives? Should the state intervene? This is a very good scenario that tells you that the state has got a role. Just like the parents have got a role, the state has a role to intervene. The Child Rights Act Nigeria places responsibility upon different organizations to ensure that children's needs are met, to ensure that children's voices are heard. The police in this case should be active. But the issue we have in Nigeria is implementation. The act is not even ratified in many states, let alone the police beginning to implement it. But we, CISWA have undergone 5-day training early this year, and we are looking at working with police, civil defense, welfare, schools. That's what we've been doing. But it's a long way, and it's not a one organization thing. So we're calling for other organizations to synergize with us so that we can all work together to make sure that the Child Rights Act becomes live, so that people will begin to understand and see how they should report, why they should report, and why someone should be responsible when a child tragedy like this goes on.
I think it's all well and good with all those organisations, but what they've left out is the most important part of it, and that's the parents. The parents have to be responsible. The parents are the centre of the core of the subject matter that all those organisations are looking at.
And that opens to another issues around are these parents even, are they aware of their responsibilities? Some parents do think that it's just okay to have children and leave them with someone else because that's how they were raised. But the thing is that some parents need help. They need education. Parents need education. We are doing some work in schools to prepare children who are leaving primary school, about some responsibilities. And we're also doing some work in some schools in Delta State, teaching children about how to keep safe. And I think right now that we are looking at developing other services with regards to parenting. Are you being prepared for parenting responsibilities? Do you understand what it entails? Is it just having a husband or having a baby just the matter? How do you protect the child? Do you know it's against the law if you leave your children uneducated, if they don't go to school? In Akwa Ibom State, if you don't go to school, the state will have your parents to account for why.
And that's the right way forward, isn't it? Because I feel very much that the state shouldn't take away the responsibility of the parents. I feel that parents shouldn't kind of like turn to the state to kind of like be responsible. I think the state should regulate, and I think the state should step in. There's an acknowledgement that not everybody that gives birth is actually cut out to be a parent, But if you do choose to be a parent, you have to acknowledge that there are roles and responsibilities that come along with that. And neglect is definitely not one of those. This situation, the scenario that we've given, is a tragic situation. It is an extreme. But it does happen, and it has happened. The other ones are the fire situation and just children hurting each other whilst they're left alone. Children, you're right, children trying to cook and getting injured during that experience.
Or being snatched. We know that the scenario I gave some time ago is about children who get snatched by their neighbors. And if you leave your children alone, at home, and people become aware, they may break into your house and take your children. They will steal your children. It's happening. So it's your responsibility as parents to put in place proper mechanisms to make sure that someone is looking after your children when you are not there. If you've gone to the market, or you've gone to work, or you've gone to see a relative, make sure your children are safe. Children need to be safe at all times.
I think one of the things is about not putting adult responsibility onto children, and in that scenario, that is exactly what happened. You know, that was an adult responsibility and was put onto an 11-year-old, and that's what we have to move away from, is putting adult responsibilities onto children who don't have the capacity to understand that.
So, viewers, you are watching Child and Society. We've been discussing scenario whereby adults where adults neglected their responsibilities to look after their children, and as a result, they left childcare responsibility to an 11-year-old child, and during that time, a child died in the care of 11-year-old. So it's a tragic. It's a tragic outcome, and we don't want these sort of things to happen. We also enumerated other things that can happen. So what we are saying, thank you for watching, but please, if you've watched this program and you know anybody who is currently leaving their children at home, please talk to them if you can. If you can't, please talk to a relative of theirs, give advice. That's what we're talking. And if you're a policeman and you're watching us, please learn. This is an issue. This happens every day. And in Nigeria, where there is always generator sets, children are left and generator can burn them, or they can even not, things can happen. So please, viewers, if you are watching, take this very seriously. Make plans if you are going out, and plan for your children. Remember, it's a crime if your child dies in your care or in the care of anybody. You will be investigated. Thank you for watching this program, Child and Society.